Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd and Neiman here again today. Another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. My guest today is Bill Baird. He's the Director of Marketing for Metron. Most of you guys know Metron and probably use Metron for your water meters. In addition to just the regular manual read water meters that we've had from yesteryear, Bill's going to tell us a lot about their water scope process, their electronic meter reads. We've been using Metron for several years. We're more recently rolling it out in all of our parks. And he's going to talk about a master meter, and it's basically how submetering your water is going to be good for your bottom line, good for your residents, good for the environment. It's a win-win-win. Please help me welcome my guest, Bill Baird. Bill, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to speaking with you and all your guests.
All right. Well, great. Well, tell us a little bit more about, what you guys do over there, maybe a little of your background and what you guys do in general. And then I'll make you the host here. So people who are in the car aren't going to be able to see this, but people who are at their computer, at some point, Bill's going to share his screen and show kind of some case studies and some examples. One of my parks and then also another client of his parks, just kind of show how the system works.
Perfect. Yeah, so Metron Sustainable Services, we're owned by Metron Fournier, and Metron Fournier has been in business for over 3 decades, and we manufacture our own meters, and we own the factory in Paris, France. And then here in Boulder, Colorado, we take a lot of pride in the register technology, which is where the register is what's reading all the water flow that's coming through the meter itself. And we build out all the registers here in our plant, and we program each individual meter based on each individual park. Each individual meter also has a cell phone driven component to it as well. So each one has their own cell phone number built into it as we build out the meters per order. What makes that really great is, through Verizon Network, we're able to communicate up to our proprietary software, which is WaterScope, which will analyze the data every 24 hours from the day's previous consumption. And that could be anywhere from temperatures, whether it's high temperatures or low temperatures, which is really good for places like here in Colorado or Minnesota, Michigan, cold areas, which you can get an alert set up to be able to notify you of a temperature that's low. So that way you can be a little bit proactive on when someone's heat tape has failed or about ready to fail type of thing. So when you sort it out, and I'll show that on WaterScope, how you sort that. It's real simple. The WaterScope is a very clean UI, which is the user interface. So it makes it really easy for anybody to adapt to the software. And if you manage the parks based on the software and utilize it once you learn it, I think it'd be pretty hands off after that point once you get your leaks under control for your residents. And to your point, trying to drive down the cost of the water waste, I guess, from that might be coming from the parks.
Yeah, no, it's super important. I mean, we regularly put in these anti-leak devices, the toilet stoppers for all of our residents, proactively on all new homes. We put them in because it doesn't do me any good for my residents to spend all their disposable cash paying the water company. And as we typically submeter our parks and bill back water sewer or wastewater discharge, depending on which state and what the regulations are, if you're allowed to bill back and everything like that. But again, doesn't do me any good to have your money go to the water department. So it's in my interest for you to have disposable money so you can have a better lifestyle. You can perhaps even paint your house or, get a better car. You can get to work better. You can, be able to pay your rent better. So I feel like this is one of the areas where our interests are directly aligned with our residents, more so than a lot of other areas. And yeah, your guys newer, I say newer software, because we didn't have it years ago on our product. We had some meters, but some of your meters even, but we didn't have the heat control. So it was like, that would have been great this last winter, polar vortex, where, man, if somebody's heat tape's failing, I can get tipped off because the temperature is now 31. Okay, it's gonna be a problem real quick, right? So yeah, I think it's a great product. Glad you can share some of your knowledge and information with us. So yeah, maybe if you want to dive right in, Bill, show us how this thing works.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share my screen here. I'm going to take everybody to one of your smaller parks, just as an example, and then I'll take you to some of the other parks from some of my other clients. So give me 1 second here.
And just so everybody knows too, from a cost perspective, typically water sewer expenses as much as 10% of your operating expenses. So if you can bill that back to the residents, it seemingly is fair. They're using what they pay for instead of a fixed fee, or instead of just some sort of other bill back mechanism, or free water, which eventually gets lumped in with the lot rent. This allows you to look at a granular level for each lot. And then you can either buy these meters from Bill, but typically now they do the kind where you lease them, and it's cheaper from an upfront cost. I know when I used to buy them years ago, it was $175. I'd put 100 into install. You got the first park I did on, I had 93 pads. So that's a big number. You got a budget CapEx day one, 93 pads at, plus or minus $3,000 a piece. Nowadays, you can get them much cheaper than that from an activation standpoint. You got to pay ongoing for months and months and years, but you get these additional services. So we have converted, and even the parks we just got, they're in my garage. We got, I don't know how many of them you just sent us, but 4 or 5 parks worth, several hundred. We're going to roll out here later this month onto this system. And we already have Metron, the quote dumb meters. We already have those in the parks. We're now converting to the smart meters, like you can see here on Truman Estates.
Yeah, and you make a lot of good valid points there with the the consumers consumption, individual consumption. The old philosophy is if you have an open bar, people are just going to continue drinking out of it, and having that individual responsibility. But the thing I've noticed with a lot of park owners that have their managers or themselves that are very proactive with the water system that they put in place with Metron is that they really try to have that transparency for their tenants, and go through and show them what the leaks are. And then I'm going to show you guys here for an example. This is one of your properties here, and this one, even though the last 24 hours they only consumed 125 gallons, if you look at their minimum flow rate, it's excuse me about that, sorry about that, it's 0.04. So if we were to go a little bit closer and dive into what this actually means, you have a couple of different alerts that popped up. One's the leak alert here. And so if we go over to the speedometer and we're to click on this, it'll show us basically the last 7 days of what that water actually looks like in a home. And this is a good example of these are different usages here where their flow rate's like 1 gallon per minute. So it's probably just a sink or something like that. It's really hard to kind of tell from these particular usages and what they're using here. But if you notice, if you were to take your cursor to the very bottom, it never actually zeroes out. And what I mean by that is the water never completely shuts off. Now, it gets very, very close here. So it's most likely is some kind of gasket or something on somebody's sink that's just never being turned all the way off, because it gets really close to it. But if you look at this, it's very interesting when you look at the usage overview, which is over on the left-hand side here. What most of my clients are able to do is take this to the tenants and go, look, even though it's a small leak, if you look at the usage overview, WaterScope's going to kind of break down the analysis a little bit here and show them that, the usage over the last week, 20% of your water bill is due to that leak. So if they were to fix that leak, which is, only 246 gallons in 1 week, but as to your point, the water rates and everything is going to be constantly going up. A new study just came out. It was a 20-year study for municipalities and what those rates look like across the whole country. And believe it or not, just for the water itself, and there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be updated constantly throughout the decades. And that water rates have gone up nearly triple to what it was in 2001. So, these water rates are not going to get cheaper if we're able to allocate that cost back down to your tenants and have that responsibility on the conservative side, on the conservational side. Everything's going to be reduced. And that's, to your point, it leaves more money in their pocket, and it's a lot easier for them to make their tenant their lot rents. So
if I can jump in, I'll tell a quick story on that. 20%, that's significant, right? And so this person, if their bill is $100, it's $20 a month. That's free money we've saved them, right? So I definitely want to reach out to these people later today and try to get that fixed. But what interestingly is that's a pretty small leak, but I was blown away with the size of some of these leaks. We had a park here in Kansas City market, and it had never been submetered. We bought the park in December of 18. And it was cold, it was winter. So I didn't walk the park and didn't really see any leaks. And sometimes the leaks are under the ground, or they go, and they're in a main line, they go downward. We had one in Illinois, but went down, we couldn't find this leak, took forever and forever to find it. It was a mainline leak. We spent like 10 grand to get to the bottom of it. But the one here in Kansas City, the first month we put a water meter on these houses, I had somebody that had a 59,000 gallon water usage.
Wow.
Their share of the bill was $3,400.
Right.
And they'd been there. It was a 1976 park home. They'd been there forever. The
Wow.
previous owner included water in the lot rent. Their water bill was 15,000 or something. They were paying over $3,000 a month for this one house for years, perhaps 50 years. I mean, it was unbelievable. And put the meter on, and then we looked, and we went inside the house, and I couldn't believe that people didn't know they were apparently illegal immigrants. So they were hesitant to call a plumber because they didn't want the plumber to figure out that they don't have paperwork and they're going to jump town. Well, when you get in the home, the tank of the toilet was overflowing onto the floor, and it rotted the floor so much that the water was leaking to the dirt, going underneath the home. We look underneath the home, and it was an old home, wasn't set on concrete piers properly. It was just on the earth with cinder blocks. These cinder blocks on one side of the house had sank an entire 8 inches, and the entire cinder block was now in the mud because there was 60,000 gallons of water dripping out of the toilet.
Wow.
For years. We had to reset the home, and obviously fix the water leaks. It was a mess, but it was unbelievable to me that in the first month there. So talk about savings for me, and that person's like, we can't pay a $3,000 bill. So I said, okay, well, I'll work with you on the first bill. I'll eat some of it as kind of, my cost, but you gotta, we got to get this fixed, and you guys got to, pay some of it too. And it ended up working out, so to speak.
Yeah, ultimately, like I said, the previous park owner will never be able to recoup that cost, obviously, throughout the whole park. And and once in a blue moon, I mean, you can always try this too, that in a circumstance like that, you could approach the municipality and see if they would reduce that due to the circumstances, to reduce that bill. It's always a good idea to try that first. And but yeah, to your point, I had one of my clients, they installed 211 of our meters. We put the master meters on there as well. And it's here in Colorado, and they have a well system, and it's very interesting. So they have 2 different wells. And so as the install crew was installing the meters, the sub meters, I would look every day to kind of see if there's anything real big concerns, such as open flapper valves, as you mentioned, on toilets, because, a lot of people don't realize, I mean, those on average, I would say probably 1.2 gallons. I mean, you just never know. It depends how wide open that flapper is, right? It could be smaller flapper that's open, or it could be wide open that can, sometimes waste up to 4 gallons per minute. But typically what I see on water scope when I see an open flapper valve, and it's very evident, and I'll try to find an example on another park here in a minute, and to show you guys what that actually looks like on the signature side of it. But it's very interesting because you can lose like 1.6 gallons per minute for, I had one client that was losing for over 12.5 gallons. And you could tell where the person in the home woke up at like 6:30 in the morning. They use the bathroom, use the restroom, and then the open flapper valve stays open. And basically, if you were to look at the graph here, basically the signature would just stay wide open, but it'd be up here on top, right? And then you could see like 2 minutes later, they jump in the shower. So there's another signature point that goes on top of that. And then they turn off the shower, and the open flapper valve still open. And then they left the house, and they came home about 12.5 hours later. And then they immediately realized their flapper was open, and then they shut it off. But you figure they're losing 1.6 gallons per minute, which is a lot of money. But this one particular client of mine, like I said, 211 lots, as they were installing it, I noticed that one of them was using roughly 5 gallons, is 4.8 gallons per minute. Constantly. And those, so I called up the install crew and asked them, hey, can you go look? I don't know what lot number you put this in yet, because I haven't got that report yet, but here's the VN number. Can you please go back and look at your notes and see which lot you put this in, because they're losing 5 gallons per minute all day yesterday. And so they went to look, and obviously they're, that kind of usage would have a big flood underneath your home. There was nothing underneath the home, but they could hear some water. So they knocked on the door. The gentleman let him in. They looked all over the place. The guy had 0 leaks, and any faucets, checked all the flapper valves, but he can still hear it. So we went back outside, crawled back underneath the home. And as he was standing back up to leave the home underneath it, he felt a hose and had water flow going through the hose. And so ultimately he realized, followed the hose, and the person, what they did is they had the hose running full blast going down the sewage line. And the old man that lived at this place had no clue. He was kind of shocked that he was wondering why he had no water pressure, and now he knows why. So,
Wow.
but you can imagine, for how many months or years, because this a client of mine just bought the park, so it's who knows how long that was actually going on. But we ultimately, with that one, they were consuming around 64,000 gallons a day prior to our submeters. And then once they got the park under control with our submeters and our master meter in correlation of the two, now they're using between 29 to 31,000 gallons a day. So they've cut their consumption in half by literally going through the park, helping the tenants if they needed help, and then making that awareness of the tenants' consumption use. So it's pretty impressive when you see the numbers, and it really is up to the park owner managers to really take that initiative to show them, how to fix it. So
Yeah, no, great story. That's the point, right?
yeah,
Save
and,
water, save money.
and this is another one of yours. This lot here at Truman Estates, it has 52.4% of their water consumption is due to the leak, so it's complete water waste. Because that signatures is never going down to zero. So this would be definitely one that you'd probably want to contact as well, even though they're not high users. But if you notice here, the flow rate really never shuts off at all. So.
Yeah, I got to get on that. I'm not the person in the company that's watching that, but whoever is.
Sure. No, exactly.
Today. So.
Let's see here. Do you want me to show you guys the master meters and
Yeah, show us the master meter. And go from there.
sounds good. I'm gonna go to this particular part that I noticed yesterday here. So this is Warren Estates that right now they have 130 submeters on their system. And these are the temperature alerts I was telling you about. Right now, it's not really cold there, obviously, in Michigan, but you can sort it from the coldest to the hottest. And excuse me, this particular meter is not installed. These right here, we always start our billing reads at 10, so we know when we programmed them, that's where they should roughly be. So this one's probably, this particular one must be inside of a storage of some sort that's actually pretty chill. So, but you can see the temperature alert pops up here.
In the freezer, 24 degrees.
It got down to 24 degrees, yeah, which won't hurt the register, right? And it won't hurt as long as there's nothing going through the pipe itself. It's not going to hurt it, as far as the plastics go or the composites. But if you notice, you see all the different variances underneath people's homes, and this is the ambient air temperature, of course. But we can take on 50 different properties and take a look at it. But I sorted it from the coldest to the warmest. So this gives you an idea of different kind of people's insulation, or if they have any kind of gaps in their skirting, especially in the wintertime when it starts coming through, that's going to make a huge difference on what the temperature is underneath the home. So, but we can take a look here. This is a high usage home. It's used, yesterday used 1,600 gallons. And actually, I think they have one that's actually used over 3,000 gallons. Let's take a look here. No, 1,600 yesterday. So we could take a look at that and just see, kind of dive into it and see what's kind of going on, because you can usually tell the behaviors. Yeah. So, they don't have a consistent leak. If you notice, the flow rate does go to actually down to zero. So somebody must have, or not sure what happened here, but at 12 o'clock in the morning, they were flowing at 2.8 gallons, 3 gallons per minute.
It looks like they took a shower all night.
Yeah, and all the way until actually all the way through the next afternoon until
maybe they filled a swimming pool or something, or left a hose on, because that's like 12 hours of full use, 4 gallons a minute. Almost
wide open. Yeah. And you could tell here the signature where they were using water for something else, and that's where the signature goes up into 3.7 gallons or whatever. Yeah, so that one's kind of interesting here. Let's take a look at the master meter uh, for this particular property. What we do is once you put a master meter on, we have what is called a DMA report. And so we can go look at the.
And then your clients, we can access this stuff 24/7, right? So you can.
That's correct.
pull
Yeah.
it up. So I just want to make sure our audience knows that the stuff that Bill's looking at here, like, I'm not the one in my company that watches this, but like Vivian can see this right now. She can do this 24/7. So it's definitely very user friendly as far as information's at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. And this signature right here, so I changed all their stuff to 1 minute data. So this is a, I don't want to say a flaw, but so just ignore that. Actually, what I think I want to bring up and show you guys, which is a little bit better, but if you take a look at the green graph here is basically representing the line is representing what is going through the actual master meter. So in this particular day, it went, at this particular time, it went through 12,000 gallons in one day. The actual downstream sub meters, in other words, what was captured downstream was 10,000 gallons. So right now they're showing a 20% loss, almost a 21% loss, and that's over a 1 month period. But what I wanted to do is show you a little bit closer here. If we
and that loss, in layman's terms, that loss is they're bringing in 10,000 gallons to the main meter. They're paying for it. Well, in this case, 12,000 to the main meter, and only 10,600 in this example are going through the individual tenant meters, which means there's mainline leaks of roughly 1,500 gallons a day.
Correct. Yeah. And so that's not even recapturable money, if that makes sense. So that's when you, as a park owner, need to figure out, like, okay, am I okay with a 5% loss or 10% loss? Depending on the size of your park, you may be okay with a 5% loss. If it's a small park, it's really not costing you much money. You're not billing back that particular money. But you want to make sure if you have a swimming pool and stuff to meter that as well, right? Because that is a big user of water as well. And it's probably a good idea to be able to know the difference between what is actually being lost versus being captured downstream. You're going to definitely want to master or put a sub meter on that line as well. But what I want to do is go into look at, those are different reports that we pull up, but I wanted to show you something very particular with the master meter here. I'll type in the master. And so this is what I've noticed yesterday, which was very interesting to me. Wait for it to load here. And I'm going to go to my make reporting. So if you notice here, this is the master meter. You could tell when they hooked up the master meter, which was on, they're getting their flow rates down to 0. Let me dial this into, sorry, let me go back to, and we can customize these dates here. So what I want to do is I want to go back to July 29th, for an example. I just want to be able to get a better screenshot so I can show you guys what when you're dialing in these master meters and what it looks like on a daily consumption, because that's a lot of usage there. So it's a little bit cleaner to be able to look at it from a few days perspective. So if you look here, if you look at the lowest points of the master meter, this right here says 0.69%, so, or 6.9, which is just under a gallon per minute flow rate, and that was on August 1st. And so if you were to look at, and I already looked at this particular park, they didn't have anything that's not being captured. In other words, they didn't have any leaks downstream that were causing that flow to be wide open like this. So this isn't too bad. And then you notice that it almost gets down to 0. So, there's no leak happening. There's a 0. I just saw a 0 point. But if you notice here on August 2nd at 5:40 p.m., this is all normal consumption going through the meter. And the next thing you know, it just shoots right up to 80 gallons per minute flow. Right. And then whatever they're doing over the next several hours, they never really got it fully under control. So I've notified this particular client to let them know that, even at the lowest point here, we can actually zoom in here a little bit better. If you look at the lowest point, they're still losing quite a bit of water, this is the lowest point that it's ever going. So they're losing between 3 to 6 gallons per minute, because, and prior to that, they were losing less than 2 to 3 gallons, or even less than 1 gallon per minute through their master meter, from what's being captured downstream. So I'm not sure what occurred at this particular point. I've notified the owner of the park so that they can reach out and figure out what was going on, because whatever they did still has not fully patched it. So, these are the interesting things that you find with the master meter versus the sub meter. It really kind of helps tell the bigger picture of what's happening with your infrastructure lines.
That's good information, good stuff. Tell us, I don't know if you have more you need to share on the screen. If not, I want to talk about, I think that's showing us the individual units, it's showing the master meter, shows the temperature, shows the wastage. So definitely lots of data in the relatively friendly user interface here. What are we looking at cost to implement some of these things?
Yeah, so we look at the cost of, we try to keep it relatively inexpensive for the park owners to get into our system. We do it through a meter lease system, which is obviously transferable if you ever do decide to sell your park. We charge $55 activation fee for the meter. The meter comes plug and play, ready to go out of the box, and it's all programmed individually for your individual parks. And a $7.25 monthly reoccurring fee between 5 to 10 years, depending on how you want to sign your contracts. If you sign a 10-year, it guarantees you the price will never go up. That includes all of our services, including the water scope, our customer service as well. Another thing I should mention that, part of the customer service part is we actually look at all the utility bills of clients that want us to be able to figure out what their rates are per gallon. So that way you can bill that back directly to the tenants. And so we go through all that process, no matter how many tier levels that they have for the municipalities. We'll figure out what those rates are. That way you'll get a monthly report that will come through an Excel CSV file, whatever day of the month that you want that to be occurring. If you have Rent Manager, Manage America, we have all APIs built into there. So it makes it very, very simple for people to integrate that as well. So that way they could just pull the reports right off each month, and to make it really, really smooth for the clients to be able to bill back appropriately.
Right. No, it's and in most states you can pass through the monthly fee as well. Sometimes there's a $0 limit, but sometimes there's $5 limit. You guys it's basically $7 a month per meter that we pay you guys. And then when you ship them, we get a couple months of kind of free time, so we can have some time to get them installed and everything like that. We happen to install ours ourselves. You guys also will do the installation, obviously for an additional fee. Some cities and states require a licensed plumber. Some don't. From a skill perspective, you don't need to be a licensed plumber to hook these things up. They're pretty easy. But some states require it, and if you don't do it, or you get caught. I have a client that's got caught doing it himself, and the city red tagged him, and now he's got a big problem. So, sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness, but sometimes you better ask for permission. So, play that however you feel like it, I guess. But
indeed.
Well, this is great information, Bill. Anything else you want to cover today? I know you're talking about pricing. What's the price on the master meter too? Because not everybody gets the master meter.
Yeah, so the master meter, depending on the size of your park, depends on the size of the meter line that's coming in there. But for an example, a 2-inch line is going to run you $1,250 for the meter itself, and then the $7 a month recurring reads that's going to come off of that, because we got to pay for the Verizon connection every day. So, but yeah, that's it's well worth it. I had a client, I won't say their name, but they over Christmas they had a rupture, and he ignored the alert system, because you'll get alert systems when it meets or surpasses that threshold if you're that 7% to 10% type of thing. And he ignored it for 3 days and was losing 60 gallons per minute. And this park's only like 29 lots. It's very small. So you can imagine he ignored it for 3 days before he actually went and addressed the issue. So, he said, my bad. So
Oh, man,
if you utilize the system and pay attention to the alerts set up, and the system works really great for park owners to be able to recoup their cost. And as you mentioned, water is one of the biggest expenditures to a park owner. And it's not going to get cheaper. So we might as well do what we can to help eliminate that cost. So,
yeah, makes sense. Bill, where can people find you?
people can find me in a couple different ways. They can go to metronsubmetering.com, and that will take you to our website, and you can take a look at all the products that we have and look at the self-install videos. We have plenty of videos for water scope hunter as well, just all high level to show you some of the things I was showing you in this presentation. In addition to that, they can reach out to me. If they want to reach out directly to me, they can reach out to my office line, which is 720-826-1174. And they can email me at bill.baird@metron-s2.com. And again, on our website, if you go to metronsubmetering.com, you can fill out a form to request more information, and either myself or someone here at the office will definitely reach out to them to provide them information that they want to get about our water meters.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks again, Bill.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
You got it. Bye now.